Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Tomorrow's Ummah podcast. My name is Ali, and today I'm joined by Dr. Abdullah and a very special guest today that we're going to be talking about charity in Islam. Our dear brother Awais Anwar from Minhaj Welfare Foundation, a global charity, and he's working as the operations manager. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on today.
Doing well, alhamdulillah. Very nice having you. It's very nice having a unique accent as well on the podcast.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, so I think we're going to have to navigate a couple of topics under charity. It's a very broad thing, and I wanted to actually just get started by talking about your experience specifically in this space. It's a lot of people don't recognize that working, especially in charity in general, requires a lot of sacrifice in itself because you are in the act of giving. But at the same time, it's a very blessed thing to do because you're able to, help others and serve humanity. So let's get started talking about your experience. What is MWF? What does it mean to be an operations manager? And where are you working out of?
So it's a very rich question with, I think there's multiple questions there.
Yeah.
So I think first and foremost, I'm going to address an elephant in the room. There's always a huge elephant when people talk about charity, people working for charity. And the biggest concept that people say is that why are you getting paid? Why do we have to pay admin costs? Why do we have to do X, Y, and Z? Why is my charity not 100%? Despite the Quran actually giving, I think Sheikh Abdullah will be able to give a better reference than myself on the on the Quran allowing people who collect zakat and collect sadaqah to actually take a portion of it. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up first is because a lot of youth have this question about why are you not sacrificing your time? The first thing is what Ali mentioned is the sacrifice. Whoever works in the charity sector, whoever I've spoken to in various different charities within Minhaj Welfare Foundation and other organizations that do good work across the globe, across the world, whether it be in Canada, US, UK, Pakistan, Africa, wherever, the biggest thing is the sacrifice that they give as well. So whereas a person I'm a chemical engineer myself by education, so if I was to compare what my salary would have been with 5 years of experience compared to what it is in the charity sector, there's a huge disparity.
That's a huge jump as well, just
Yeah.
considering the fact that you studied something STEM based, a bit more technical, and then
Yes.
going into charity is probably a serious decision. So where you just mentioned something small, right?
Mhm.
People say, why don't you just sacrifice your time?
Yeah.
In charity, in the noble work of serving humanity, it's not only time you're sacrificing, it's you're sacrificing a lot of things that could be. And we keep on repeating the word sacrifice, but I think what we're getting at here, it's a blessing in serving humanity. But all right, so that's one aspect of it. Now, what does it actually mean? What is the work that a charity actually does? What does operations look like? And what is it that the charity that you work for specifically do in this case?
So the first thing is what does operations look like? What happens? Let's look at the back end first, the boring stuff, and then let's get to the fun afterwards. So now let's just say Ali's donated 100 Canadian dollars. Now what does that mean? Now he's given it to Minhaj Welfare Foundation. Minhaj Welfare Foundation is going to feed a family of 5 for 4 months with that $100, for argument's sake. Let's just say that's going to happen now. So that $100 will come to Minhaj Welfare Foundation and we'll implement that. In between, there's about 12 to 13 different processes and steps. That's where the operations comes in. So when you donate it, first of all, we need to verify how you've donated it, whether it's online, whether it's cash, whether it's check. Then we need to deposit it accordingly. Once that's done, then we need to allocate it to the X fund, whichever country, then we need to send it across. Then we need to buy the certain goods, procurement. After procurement, then we have to look at the beneficiary, because Ali's made his commitment to donate. He's given his zakat, he's given his sadaqah. In the eyes of Allah Almighty, he's clear.
A lot of people think you give money, it gets to the person.
Yeah, and
That's all you care
now
about.
it's MWF's responsibility. Now I will be held accountable in the eyes of Allah Almighty. Minhaj Welfare Foundation will be, the management will be. So we need to make sure that the beneficiary, the person who's receiving it, is those that is deserving. The Holy Prophet said, look for those people that do not ask for money, that do not beg, but are deserving. people whose circumstances might have changed, people who don't know. It's our responsibility to source that beneficiary and then give it to that correct person. So all of these processes take place. I've skipped quite a few,
No, I
quite a
can
big chunk
imagine.
of it as well. So that's how that $100 turns into food packs. So it's not just money to money. It's not one end you put it in and the other end. That's why we have a huge team that work on ensuring that your donation, that your amana reaches to those that are genuinely deserving as well. So that's why I said it's very important for us as a charity to make sure that operations are run appropriately and correctly.
So have you ever kind of sat down with your team and decided or kind of put into account how long does it actually take? So let's say I give $100 today and I want to give it to someone in Gaza, Palestine, for example.
Yeah.
When would they get the money? Or when would they get the foods that you've procured?
So
Or does it vary, or is there a set time frame?
It varies for each project.
Okay.
For example, let's say you were to donate for a water pump.
Okay.
Now, you've donated for a water pump. We say it takes 3 to 6 months because it's a whole process that goes on.
Okay.
Now, there's an emergency going on in, let's just say, in Turkey, the earthquake, Pakistan, there were floods. In Gaza, there's the humanitarian crisis going on. So what we do in this situation is we have allocated funds in general donation, so we'd allocate that. And then whenever you donate, because we've got everything already in the pipeline, we've set everything up, we've spoken to the procurement managers, we've spoken to the teams on the ground, we have everything. As soon as the money pours in, then we start buying things.
So you can deploy the whatever aid it is right away.
Right away, exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a question in Gaza, specifically in Gaza this case. So everyone was, the borders are closed, everything's closed, how are you getting the aid across? At that time, we weren't getting aid across. What we were doing, we were procuring all the goods, we were sourcing the local partners, local charities who are genuine, who we can trust. We were doing our due diligence process. So whilst your money was pouring in, we were doing all of that back-end work. So as soon as the border opened, we were able to send our trucks across. So that makes it a lot easier for us as well. And obviously in emergency situations, we have to speed up the process. That means us working 24 hours, day and night. Ali's been with me as well and seen sometimes how constantly I'm always on the phone, we're doing this, we're calling this person, that, but to ensure that the aid gets across to the correct person at the correct time.
So on that note, now in terms of fiqh, for example, Fitrana, Eid al-Fitr just passed.
Yep.
Eid Mubarak to everyone listening, Eid Mubarak to you as well.
Yeah.
But for the Fitrana, it's supposed to be given before Eid.
Yes, correct.
Potentially, I mean, ideally, the people who are supposed to receive it before Eid,
Correct.
so they have it.
Yes.
So how does that work? Let's say a lot of people now, I know personally, for example, I give the khutbah before Eid Salah. I'm like, if you haven't given Fitrana, do it before Salah or it doesn't get accepted.
Exactly.
And I see people literally getting up, going downstairs, putting it in the Fitrana box, whatever they got to do. That's not going to reach them before Eid. So how long before should you potentially donate for the funds to get there before, in an ideal circumstance?
In an ideal circumstance, it should be done before Ramadan. Or in the first week of Ramadan, you should give your fitrana. Okay. That way, it's off your burden, off your head, and it will get to the person. However, because this is a huge issue, we have an anticipated amount that we know on Eid we're going to receive, for argument's sake, $10,000 from Canada, for argument's sake. So what we will do is on Eid day, before Eid day, we'll deploy all of our $10,000 worth of goods, food, gifts, which are meant to go to the families. So we'll give that beforehand, so that when the money comes in,
have it on the first of Shawwal.
We do have a general fund which is used as a buffer zone. So we utilize it from there to ensure. So for example, we'll always do extra. For example, if we're expecting $10,000, we'll spend about $12,000. So when people give it, so at least your fitrana is accepted. And more important than your fitrana being accepted is the deserving people, they get to celebrate the Eid accordingly.
Now, is that something that, I'm not sure, maybe you know, but is that something that all charities you think are doing?
Most charities do. I'm not sure. I can't answer for a lot of them, but because we do work we partner with other charities. They partner with us as well for numerous projects. That is generally the trend that we do.
Got it.
Okay. And so that's interesting. You're deploying, let's say you're deploying funds for charity for Fitrana. Now, one common thing people say is that you should always make sure and this is something in principle, you should make sure you help the people closest to you first. But Fitrana, I believe, in principle, it's just supposed to go to the ones that need it or are most deserving, and or you're gifting in the spirit of Eid as well, right? So how do you select where that goes? Because I don't know, in my mind, that's a very vague thing, right? If someone says to me, someone's the most deserving for charity, if you ask me that question, I'll rack my head on that question for so long, and I wouldn't be able to answer it. What does that process look like?
So It's a very interesting question that you ask. The funny thing is, there's no specific answer. So, what we did when the Turkey earthquake came, that year we dedicated our fitrana to the victims of the earthquake. Then, when the floods came in Pakistan, we dedicated the fitrana to the affected victims of the flood in Pakistan. This year it was Gaza. There's different times, different projects that are needed. And we look at the demands wherever there is, and we have teams on the ground in various different countries letting us know we need this here or there. And sometimes we split it accordingly, depending on the need in those certain locations.
So it's probably just a lot of research.
A lot of research
that goes into it.
This is why we have teams on the ground who are scouting beneficiaries, looking for what the need is, where the demand is.
It's interesting you say that, because one thing I know for a fact, and I've been to MWF office, their headquarters in the UK, is that the biggest advantage that this charity has in particular to others is they have a lot of volunteers on the ground in different
huge
countries.
number of volunteers.
And like, I'm talking thousands in different countries that they're working in. Wherever, when it was like the Rohingya, when they were fundraising in India, in different areas of Pakistan.
So, question on the volunteers though, just so our viewers are clear and I'm clear, are these direct volunteers or are these volunteers through an affiliate organization? So I know some charities, what they end up doing is, let's say, I have a station in Uganda, I have a station in Gaza, I have a station in Rohingya, but it's not, let's say my charity's name is XYZ. It doesn't say XYZ on them. It's ABC who works for XYZ, who works for this, or is it kind of direct MWF?
Direct volunteers we have.
Mashallah. That's pretty big, because I don't know a lot of charities that do that.
In Pakistan, for example, I would say we probably have the biggest grassroots network of volunteers.
Is your headquarters in Pakistan?
In the Pakistan office, yes.
So that's the global headquarters.
The global headquarters. Every country's run separately. Every country's run as an individual. Okay. But if you were to say the country that has the biggest operation, that would be the UK.
And how many countries are you operating out of?
We operate in terms of donations and everything, we operate in about over 28 countries, I believe it is. We have incoming and everything from over 90 countries, but like I said, operations depends, and obviously that's growing as well day by day.
Operationally, you mean where you collect money and distribute money?
Where we distribute. Where we collect money is from over 90 countries.
So like Canada, for example, you have a presence here, you've got an office here.
Yeah.
But this isn't part of your 28.
This isn't part of the 28.
Because you don't distribute. Because
over here, we have a local food bank project, which we work in partnership with the local food bank, Mississauga Food Bank.
Okay.
But in terms of actually implementing spending money,
zakah or fitra,
we have different countries where we do that.
Got it.
So there's income countries and there's implementation countries.
Okay. I mean, I always figured, and quite interestingly, back in like high school, a couple of my friends were really passionate about like NGO projects. I know you and me, Abdullah, we went to like the UN. And we had a lot of these motivational speakers talk about making an impact in your community as youth. And after that, I got really like motivated. And one of my friends came up with this idea. It was like, gathering information from the internet, from the latest news, and populating what is the most like urgent place that requires your charity or donation, right? And I can imagine right now that any charity sitting down, the most time that they can, or time spending tasks or things that could take the most of their time is probably research.
Yes.
Right? Is just figuring out where and how that money can be allocated. Now, at a time, and I've seen this, a lot of charities are running like 10, 20 different projects at once.
So how many projects are you guys running? If you can kind of...
If I count on the top of my head, we've got food
roughly.
Globally, Globally, maybe about 20, 25 projects at least. Even, for example, if we're doing food, we talk about food, we do food distribution in homes, we do food parcels where people come and collect. Then we have food, we call them food, Dastarkhan projects. So basically, people come and they buy food. So we're selling them for 50 rupees.
Yeah.
That will cost about 300, 400 rupees for them.
Okay, I've heard you have a project, Sponsor an Orphan.
Sponsor an Orphan.
And I know, because that's one that particularly interests me and that I make sure I'm a part of. Where is that going? Like, that's going towards, you have an orphan care home, you have multiple facilities. And to my knowledge, I recently got the news that it's packed out.
So one of the USPs, the unique selling points of Minhaj Welfare Foundation, is bricks and mortar. we actually have our own projects. So we do work with other partner organizations as well. But one of the biggest things is we have our own orphan care homes. Aghosh is a flagship project which started in the year 2005. We've got 4 of them across Pakistan. We've got 1 in Lebanon as well. So over there, as Ali said, it's packed. We have loads of orphans coming in and we take care of them. It's not just housing them, it's housing them, feeding them, clothing them, nurturing them, giving them the correct education as well, and then at the end of it we support them into getting into good jobs or running their own businesses as well. And now, alhamdulillah, one of the biggest projects that we are looking, our new flagship project, is the Minhaj Orphan Care Complex, which will house 1,000 orphans and 2,000 pupils for education, and that will be 500 boys, 500 girls for the accommodation, and 1,000 boys and 1,000 girls for education.
You know, I was actually I was looking through social media and I found something a bit. It sparked up controversy. All right, because we're speaking about orphan care, and subhanAllah, in Islam, there's a huge emphasis in making sure to take care of children and taking care of those who may have lost parents or don't know have that primary caregivers. And it was like, I think it was like a beef between Muslims on the internet. It was like, oh, you shouldn't call them orphans, or you shouldn't make it clear that they don't have parents. It makes them look bad. And so, just to summarize, that's one side. The other side's like, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an orphan, right? And
it was one of his titles.
It was one of his titles, and that he made it very clear to take care of those who lost their parents. So like, you call it an orphan care home or whatever it is. To summarize, it was a very interesting controversy on social media.
I see both sides of it, but like I said, social media is a tool where people use to debate, and it's keyboard warriors. I'm maybe saying things which I shouldn't say, but I don't really pay much heed or pay interest because it's a waste of time. And the things that people say, a lot of them aren't decided by research or anything. People just put their feelings out there, and a lot of it's not backed by Islam as well.
The reason why I bring it up is because recently a couple of my friends as well from the UK went with MWF to visit, all their centers in Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their trips was to the orphan care home.
Okay.
And subhanAllah, like, they spent such a good time with the children there. And they were like big brothers, big sister type of thing.
Interesting.
And it was like the kids, like, they were crying for them not to go. Like they wanted to spend time with them. And they were like, they had such a wonderful time together. And other people would take it out of context as like, why are you highlighting those kids' lives and things like that? But people don't recognize that, like, a lot of it is that you want to do everything you can to give them happiness. I
think, based on what you've said and kind of what you started upon this podcast on as well, is just people are entitled to their opinion. But as you just kind of noted, this is a hadith, Sahih hadith. The most hated phrase that near Allah is when someone says, come towards Allah, or listen to this, or don't do this because this is what Allah says. And you say, worry about yourself. That's the most hated phrase in the sight of Allah. That's all we do on social media. Why this? Why that? Put your hands where your mouth is then. Like, do it.
Yeah.
Show us something. Create an MWF. Go and do something for the orphan rather than just say, why are you doing it? Because guaranteed, if you actually feed an orphan, is by far a much greater impact than saying, don't call them an orphan.
And I really like one thing an influencer said, and I know we're going to talk, influencers a whole different. It's a guy who's good on social media, and he's like, I'm highlighting or vlogging my journey with the orphan care home to show you that where your money is going. Like, look, like I have the responsibility. Like, for example, why do charities have social media? It's not to show pictures of bad things, or it's so that it's very clear that those who have, the ability to give, look where your money is going. Look how it's providing. And that was like, for me, it clicked mentally. I was like, in the back of my mind, I always thought, why do people post things about, giving or giving charity or showing? But in reality, there's something behind it. Someone is giving. You're motivating others to give. And it sort of goes back to that story of Hazrat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu and Hazrat Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu competing to give.
To do better. All the Sahabas used to compete.
They all used to compete. And you should compete. Because I've seen it. You guys all stand up at Tarawih time and then someone stands up, starts fundraising. And the only way people start giving is when someone starts to get one person.
Encouragement.
It's encouragement. And that for me was a huge mental click. And that's why I brought up the controversy a little, is because people like, oh no, why are you even showing, these care
If I give
homes?
you this is my personal opinion, there's nothing. I don't like doing this stuff. I really hate being behind the camera, in front of the camera. I hate saying, look at this. And the trip that you're talking about, I was actually there on that trip as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I with the volunteers that went, I said to them, go with the kids, and I used to sit back and I used to just really stay out of it. I'm not a fan of being that. However, I understand the importance, because if you've donated, it's important for you to see. And the second thing is, one is the impact, and second is for you to see the necessity as well. If someone sees it, they will donate. And I always say this, Allah Almighty is taking care of those kids. MWF is doing nothing. Avas is doing nothing. You guys are doing nothing. It's Allah Almighty who's doing it. But we are just, Allah Almighty is using us. The same way Allah Almighty will take care of them, we're just giving other people the opportunity to take care of them as well, to sponsor a child, for them to be respected in the eyes of Allah Almighty.
It's your privilege.
It's
to
your
be
privilege
able,
to be able
to.
Of course.
Do something.
I mean, you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. There's always going to be someone who has an issue with what you do, even if you do nothing, because then why aren't you doing something? So you just can't keep everyone happy. And I always say on social media, if if you actually use your name on social media, you wouldn't say 90% of the things that we do say.
Exactly.
If you clicked your name on Instagram or YouTube and your whole resume came up, where you're from, where you live, what's your actual name, you wouldn't say the things, because you'd be like, my Izzah.
Yeah.
But you don't have any problem in reducing the Izzah of someone else, even if they're doing something positive.
That's why I have people hide behind like these anonymous names, like Potato Man or
I
whatever.
mean, I know people who go out of their way, create anonymous names on Instagram and TikTok just to beat someone down, so it doesn't come back to them. It's just the state of the ummah. But again, I mean, great kudos to you that you guys are continuing to do your work, regardless of what the world says. And I mean, 95% of the population is almost always positive, especially for charities. It's the 5%. They're so loud that they drown out the other 95 sometimes.
Negativity sells.
Because it hurts too.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone says, subhanallah, mashallah. Okay. And somebody says, oh, you guys are stealing money. What do you mean I'm stealing money?
Where did that even
Where
come
did that
from?
even come from? Like, why would you make such an outlandish demand or outlandish comment? It gets your blood irking, but that's sabr, right? That's what patience. Rasulullah went through it.
Of course.
Allah knows what kind of things he had to hear. And he was a sadiq and al-amin.
Yes.
And he had to go through that. And now today, alhamdulillah, look, the whole world is saying,
And he was
la ilaha illallah.
exalted in moral character.
Oh, for sure.
So there's like,
وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ
خُلُقٍ
عَظِيمٍ.
عظيم.
Yeah.
and so there's no comparison. And I want to lead into this. Like, I've seen that you traveled during the Turkey earthquakes. I remember I messaged you when you traveled to Turkey and you were returning. I'm like, are you okay? Because there was just another
Earthquake. When I was on the flight
happened.
back here.
And I remember I tried calling you and I couldn't reach you, and I left you messages because I was really worried. I was saying, oh yeah, no, where's Awais? Like, is he okay? Like, what happened? What is like an initiative or a project you worked on that sort of left a mark on you, that you feel like really changed or really like flipped a switch or really made you realize things while working in charity?
So the first time I ever traveled for work in terms of implementation was Turkey. That was the first time during the Turkey earthquake. We had a program in Manchester, and from Manchester, it was a planned spontaneous. Avas, you're coming with us as well, so let's go.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I was like, I was in Manchester at that time.
Yeah.
And I find out like Awais has gone to Turkey. I was so
It was
confused.
a spontaneous. It was like
Yeah.
within 2 days. My mom and dad were going Umrah at the time as well.
We're in Turkey.
Gaziantep. So we started
This
off.
was
I don't know
during
where that is.
this was during the earthquake.
Okay.
So I
So.
thought you would say like Istanbul and Kara or something.
No, we started off at. We landed in Adana. From there, we drove 3 hours to Rehanli. From Rehanli, then we went to
You lost me at that.
Gaziantep. So it was all across. But when we landed and we started driving, 3 hours, you look left, you look right, only destruction. That's all you could see. It was houses, flats that just fell down. And one thing Ali mentioned, when I came back to the UK, I landed at Stansted Airport, and I turned on my phone when the flight landed, because I don't like using Wi-Fi on aeroplanes. That's like my sleep time. So I turned my phone on, and I'm seeing why everyone's messaging me like, why am I so popular today? I don't know. Does everyone know I'm coming back? What's going on? And I see everyone, and one of my friends messaged, there's another earthquake hit, and I froze. I literally froze. because after what I saw there, after what I saw that happened, it really broke me. That it didn't break me as much, but when I got the message, that completely shattered me. And I was like, after what I just saw, after everything that just happened,
How are they going
how
to
is
deal
it-
with
how are they
another
going to
one?
deal with another? But alhamdulillah, the second one wasn't as bad because people had already evacuated. They were expecting it and everything. So that was a really positive sign for me.
And the aid was on the ground at that point.
Aid was on the ground. And asking how it changed me, or how it left a mark, when I landed and I saw the people, when I obviously at that point I was working for 2 years. So that was my third year of working actually
As MWF.
as
Within MWF.
within MWF, and to see the impact that all the work has done. We did numerous different activities before that for Turkey as well. Seeing all of that impact, it really changed me as a person.
I can imagine.
Seeing the fact that how much it impacts people, it made me more appreciative for what I have, and it made me at that moment in time I said, I don't think I'm going to change my career.
You know, when you say appreciative, one other thing I was thinking about is like, imagine like now you've landed back from a trip where you were trying your best to implement, you know, whatever people give, right? And then I was thinking from your perspective, because I remember I was messaging you during this when you landed, was that like you just seen people lose their homes, right? Now you're going back home. You have a place that you know you're gonna sleep in bed at night. And then just that feeling that like you tried your best to implement whatever was given, and more people just lost their home. They're not returning home. You just have the feeling that we did our best. And then you saw that destruction, you saw the state that they were in, and now you just hear that, oh no, they just got hit by another earthquake. Imagine how many more are in that state of panic or in that state of grief or in that state of sadness that they're not returning home. And you know, that's like a really, like I can imagine emotionally something really difficult to understand. But subhanAllah, like this is the work. Like this is why charities require the funds, right? That it's a really tough topic to talk about, money. But money makes, you know, things easier, lifts burdens, helps people, return to their normal lives, helps rescue them from bad health, or helps rescue them when they're injured. Imagine how much funds that you're giving is helping you. You work in the hospital, right? There's money given to research. That's a form of charity, right? And imagine how many people are being cured through that research. How many people are being,
At the same time, it's so tough taking money. I understand from the research side. I understand from the charity side. There's a very famous hadith, Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Ibn Adam, even if he has 2 gardens of gold, he will wish for a third.
Yeah.
And the hadith continues, only the dirt of the grave will fill his belly or fill his gluttony. It's just the way we're created. We're created wealth, money, and it's money that goes round. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said, I wish upon myself and my al just enough food, just enough livelihood, that our ruh and our body, the connection remains intact. That's what he wished upon himself and his children.
I'm so happy you brought up now taking money. The reason why is we've come up with every single unique way to fundraise. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
You've seen it all. You probably try and
I've jumped out of a plane for money.
No way.
I've jumped out of a plane too. Skydiving. People do, subhanAllah.
How do people pay to watch you jump?
No, like you raise money.
It's
like
like a
I'll do
sponsored
this.
thing. So
I'll
I'm gonna do
this, you
this.
do it.
I'm gonna jump out.
If you give me this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how.
Or
it
like
works.
I'll go.
I've done bungee jumping.
One thing is that MW used to do like we'll go
Snowdon.
climb Snowdon,
Mount Snowdon. Yeah.
Great Wall of
We should do that
China.
something in Canada.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
That'd be amazing.
So
Yeah,
the reason I'm
definitely.
saying that is I've seen every single thing, every unique way to gather funds or fundraise, right? Is it necessary? Right? Like, why is this so hard that you have to communicate, you have to market, you have to make it very clear and apparent? And I think the reason is like we live in such a hyper consumerism society that like people need to be sold on what you're doing, and they need and obviously charities, you're selling reliability, you're selling the trust, you're selling, because who knows where those funds are going. But at the same time, there's so much effort needed to put into
Fundraising,
collecting
yeah.
that money.
You have events, then you have campaigns, then you have this, you have that. All of these things which go on. It's not an easy job.
It's because we're trapped by wealth.
Yeah.
If you recall the last khutbah Rasulullah gave when he, not the last khutbah, one of the last, he took everyone to Mount Uhud and he gave his khutbah there. And he said, I don't fear that you guys will commit shirk, speaking to the ashab. He said, but I do fear that the wealth of the world will trap you.
And
he went
materialism
on to
has
say-
done that.
Yeah, and he will on to say, and the wealth will ruin you and cause you to fight amongst one another, which is what we're doing, unfortunately. Rather than give to a charity like MWF towards causes, we'll buy a small subscription for XYZ on Google, which is like $5, $15. How many gym memberships? Like I have two. I don't even know why I have two, but I like just speaking about myself. Why do I have two? If I give one towards maybe $50 a month sponsoring an orphan, that's a greater use of my wealth.
But there's a hard line here that people fail to understand. Well, I wouldn't say hard, a soft line. People say, "Oh, you've got this much money. Why are you spending it on yourself?" For example, getting a new car. If you have money, you should spend it on yourself.
And you should show it. That's the hadith of Rasulullah.
There's no harm in doing that. However, but don't neglect those in need.
Very fair.
And some of the wealthiest people I've seen give the most as well.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Really?
No.
I've seen a lot of wealthy people giving, subhanAllah.
So
Maybe it's because there's one or two of them. That
Okay.
they kind of. But there was a very interesting study published by Harvard that says the more you give in charity,
the more you get back.
the more you get back. And it's published.
And it was economists that did the study. And when they did the study, they were very confused. So they kept looking at it. Then they went to a bunch of psychologists. And
they
when
asked
they
them,
went to
yeah.
the psychologists, yeah, we've been seeing this for a long time. There's nothing new in this. And I think one of the reasons I don't remember the study at the top of my head, but one of the reasons they said is because once people give money, if for example I'm giving $100 a month for whatever cause, I need to earn that money to make sure that
I've
I
heard
give
this.
that.
Yeah.
So people do that, and it's actually a very learned study. And this is not just in Muslims, in Christians and in atheists and in every different faith. It's
This
part of it.
the research study wasn't done by Muslims.
No, it wasn't. No.
That's the world. But again, in terms of Islam, Allah says, "Give me, and then let me give you."
Yeah.
And the giving of Allah is a lot more than what we try to give to
And in ways, obviously, we don't know.
Yeah,
And we're
exactly.
talking about
Exactly.
monetary
So
wealth.
it doesn't mean if you're going to give $1, you're going to get $700 back. It doesn't work like that.
Or
They
it
may-
could.
It could.
You
as
never
well.
know.
It
Yeah.
could,
You never
but it's
know.
not necessarily just limited
But it
to
gives you
that.
700 ajr.
Yeah. No, it could even be 700. For example, something bad was going to happen. Well, the very famous thing, sadaqah bala ko talta hai. So it would stop something bad happening as well. So
And
there's loads of different
sadaqah
things.
changes your decree,
Your decree as well, your destiny.
And there's a very famous story from Hazrat Usman or another, perhaps Abdurrahman bin Auf, it escapes me. There was a little bit of a drought or famine in Medina, and somebody said, and Usman or whoever that Sahabi was, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, he received a huge wealth or a huge caravan, and he said, "I'll buy your wealth for 1.5 to 1 ratio." He said it's too low. Then he said 2 to 1 ratio, too low. 3 to 1 ratio, too low. 4 to 1 ratio, too low. And he's like, who is giving you more than 4 to 1? Like you give me $1, I'm giving you $4 in return. Who is giving you more? He's like, Allah.
I believe this was Hazrat Usman.
Hazrat Usman.
I believe
okay,
it was.
okay.
But
And then I think he said a denomination that for every one that I give, he's giving me 10 or 70, I think, whatever the denomination was.
Yeah.
But subhanallah. So he took it literally.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what the Sahaba did. We tend to, what we do, and as we kind of made this kind of similar mistake, we don't know if we get $700 back. How do you know?
Yeah.
Give.
You just give.
You never know what Allah, it might not be right away. It could be when you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years later that Allah just blesses you with $10 million out of nowhere.
And the ironic thing here is that we're selling charity. We're fundraising.
Yeah.
And I want to flip the script. Okay. I think we understand. Okay. People should give. It shouldn't be a thing that should be asked. Obviously, in this type of environment, you need to find the right charity, find the right thing that sticks, so you understand that this is really well needed, etc. I know personally. That's why my whole life I volunteer for MWF. I've worked with them. We can trust that I know where those funds are going. Now let's flip the script. All right, you don't have the money, you can give. Obviously, people say you can volunteer your time, effort, go on the ground, give charity through your actions, through spending whatever extra time you have in helping cleaning your environment, for example, or cleaning up the streets. Starting from minor things to bigger things. There's very, very different ways. The reason why I bring this up is because social media, there's two sides of a coin. One side is people say that, what's the point in posting a story about awareness, right? Are you really doing anything? Other side is like, people should know, because if I can't give, at least someone else can maybe see what I'm doing and give. And I think both sides make a good point, right? It's that like, okay, are you really doing anything by sharing the message of giving or relief or over a humanitarian crisis, what's happening in Palestine? And this is two-part. This is not only charity, this is activism as well, right? Is just sharing something on your story enough?
My point answer to this is very simple. So Allah Almighty in this day and age has made it so easy, for you to gain rewards. When you share a message, when someone implements on that, when you feed someone who's fasting, Allah Almighty gives you the same amount of reward as a person who is fasting. When you help someone, Allah Almighty gives you the same amount. If someone donates because of your message, Allah Almighty will give you the same amount of ajr. So imagine if you share it to 1,000 people and 10 of those people donate. Imagine how much reward you're getting. This is the day, and if you look at the bad side of social media, that's fine, but look at the good side as well. Because of that, you might even get into Jannah just because of that. So sharing a message is extremely important. There's no reason for you not to do it. And the worst is someone will say, this guy's showing off, this guy's doing this, he doesn't have any money, or X, Y, and Z. Okay, let him say that. But look at the good side. The pros outweigh the cons by, I would say, multifold, exponentially even, because it's so important for you to share that message and everything. And I say this to everyone, all of our volunteers especially, and anyone who supports or anyone who even shares a message. Your sharing of a message, your volunteering, you speaking about MWF, even today you guys speaking about this this important topic, the entire team, any little thing that you do, it means one thing, that a poor person has been fed today, that someone's hunger has been satisfied, someone's thirst has been quenched, and someone who has no clothes on his back has been clothed. Someone has got an opportunity just because of this one message that you've given. So don't think that I can't afford to pay, so it's hypocritical of me to do it. It's not. It
can lead to a net positive.
Of course. And it always is a net positive.
And so Gen Z has been through this. The reason why I say this, COVID happened, right? COVID, a lot of online movements happened during that time in terms of activism, particularly, right? People were trying to, there was a whole the hashtag woke era, like, people were getting more woke about various concepts about equality and equity, and these terms were being thrown around. People were just sharing, I don't know if you remember during BLM, they were sharing just black posts, like just a black screen, and then they had a message about it.
People change their profile photos,
and then there was a whole debate that happened, like on the internet. It was a Gen, and I'm explaining because I think I'm Gen Z, so this is what I experienced, which is that that's not enough, right? Because what's really needed is understanding what is the issue. So while you're sharing things, make the active effort to understand where the crisis lies, how it's happening, and then understand it from a deeper level. And I think that's something as Muslims we want to encourage in all of your areas of life, is to seek knowledge in your deen and in your fiqh and how you practice Islam. The same thing goes for if there's a crisis happening in the world or there's injustice. We have to put the same amount of effort in learning about why that's so and how we can help. So when all these things were happening, people started then, it took a shift. People started sharing articles, writing posts about, why the situation is like that for different people or groups or minorities. Why are they going through different issues? So it actually became a lot more progressive. It became a lot more productive because people were starting to learn about issues. And I'm so glad that this whole generation, and I can't speak for the whole generation, but that happened during COVID, during that whole digital era where people were online warriors, because it led to a net positive. Now people want to, rather than just sharing a post, they will take the time and they will understand what the issue is. Not just share one image. What's that going to solve?
Out of context, when you see things out of context, it just ruins it for yourself as well. And it ruins your credibility as well if you share it.
Just be positive. I mean, just be nice, man. Social media is so toxic nowadays.
It is.
Just do something positive. If you can't, just stay silent. Follow the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Unfortunately, as you said, I don't know if it's Gen Z or whatever the generation's going on. I think it's everyone wants to feel important, and part of the way, and psychologically, part of the way I, for example, will feel important is by putting you down because it makes me feel superior.
Yeah.
That's not good. How many more people are you going to put down? Because unfortunately, undoubtedly, if you try to put someone down in person, that will go a lot differently than when you're behind a screen and you're protected. And when you go out to face the real world, it's again very much different. And that's where, like in my practice, there's so many youngsters that I see who have a fear of meeting with people, who have a fear of judgment of people, who have a fear of what is going to happen now, who have a fear of like inferiority complex, bipolar disorder, ADHD, depression, all of these things. Why? Because we're so used to saying whatever we want behind the screen that I can't say it to you in person because, it just goes to show, like, as you were saying, I think really what you got to do is do something. Whatever you feel is good, just do it.
With sincerity.
And sometimes that sincerity isn't, for example, you want to do something, but in your mind, Shaitan, the way he works is, you're not actually sincere. Like you're praying. Yeah.
Hey, you studied economics,
Yeah.
right? So,
a little bit.
okay.
Yeah.
In economics, they say everything is for, the gain of an individual, whatever action it is.
Yeah.
And so that has gone to the level of your amal as well. People think that like you can't do things out of the sincerity of serving humanity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we just have a paradigm shift, like a mental shift, just saying, no, I'm very certain that what I'm doing is for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, because He commanded that I serve others. That in itself, I remember like, people, they always ask the question, you probably face scrutiny as well, working in this industry. Who are you doing it for? Like, are you just doing it to make I know people's charity salaries. I'm sure they're not doing it for the salary. They are doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. They are doing it because there is something driving them to help others,
That's why in the Hanafi fiqh, you say the intention out loud. Because no matter what the waswasa is of shaitan, say it out loud. Let it manifest. I'm assuming that's what Imam Abu Hanifa came from when he made this. And it's so relevant today. If you give charity and you have that waswas, why am I doing that? I'm giving this for this orphan for the sake of Allah. Say it out loud. Manifest it.
100%.
And inshallah, the shaitan, when he realizes I can't change him, he'll leave.
100%.
He has many other people to exploit.
So charity is one thing that cleanses you as well. So even if you do give,
cleanses your wealth and yourself
and your intention as well. So you should continue giving no matter what the intention is. And another thing is, I was listening to something the other day as well. He said that the Holy Prophet said for those that are struggling to give, they should give even more.
Yeah.
So it's not about having money, and if it was about changing the whole economic system, changing everything, that's one part of charity. We are changing everything. You're giving poor people food to eat. But the other side is, what I would even say is the greater side, is about changing yourself. Every time you give, because what is money? Money is something you love. Anyone who says they don't love money is a liar. I wouldn't say category. They're obviously the exception, because everyone loves it. They've worked for it. They earned it, and it's the right thing.
Waste is just calling us out.
So even myself, my salary comes. We work hard for it. Everything. So parting from something that you love for the sake of Allah Almighty, that in itself is a huge thing, and that cleanses you, that purifies your nafs, that purifies, and that's part of tazkiyah as well. So whenever the Sahaba Ikram used to go to meet the Holy Prophet, Allah Almighty commanded in the Quran to give sadaqah before going, because it purifies you as well. So even in that, you should definitely. And that point Ali was saying, that rich people give, the people who are poor, they give a lot more. We get a lot more donors who can't afford actually 5, 6, 7,000. But people I've seen give their inheritance away. They would give the entire inheritance away. So we don't need it.
As we wrap up, just the last thing. I don't know, someone from within MWF told me, and I want to see if this is true or how you guys can work it. I heard that you have a 0% policy on zakah and fitrana, meaning you don't take any admin costs from zakah.
Yes, that's correct.
Or fitra.
Yes, that's correct.
So everything else, so zakah and fitra, if I give $1,000, the whole $1,000 goes to wherever I want it to
That's
go.
specifically for zakat, yes. So we have 100% zakat policy.
What about fitra?
Fitra same as well, because that's zakat al-fitr.
It's
It
zakat
falls,
al-fitr,
falls
okay.
into the same category.
Okay.
So for zakat, we have
That's
100%.
huge. I don't think a lot of charities do that.
Yeah,
I,
that's-
No,
I don't want to speak out loud, but
We
Yeah.
have very small overhead costs as well. Obviously, if you take bank charges, when you take all of these lawyer costs, fees, because these are things that you have to have when you're filing your taxes, which you have to do, which people fail to understand.
lawyers or accountants?
In Canada,
Oh, you need lawyers.
you
here as
have
well?
you have to have accountants, lawyers. You have to have all of this
Oh wow.
to make sure everything
Your
is compliant.
processing and
You're
I guess.
and then obviously when you have
I
bank
thought somebody
charges,
was suing you guys, so you guys need lawyers in defense. But okay.
no, but you have, because when we set up the organizations, you need to make sure everything's done properly. You're better off doing it properly
Oh,
now rather than 5 years
Fair
later
enough,
getting
fair
stuck.
enough,
So
mashallah.
these are things that people don't see, which are
I didn't see it. I'm
Yeah.
glad
Well,
you're-
give
yeah.
your money, guys. I mean, you know where to give your zakat
Yeah.
now.
So we have a fund specifically to cover overheads as well, stuff like this, and then we have certain donors who help cover the cost, which allows us to do the 100% zakat policy.
Subhanallah,
And then sometimes, if need be, we take it from our sadaqah pot, or general donations pot, just to ensure that the zakat's completely fulfilled, to make sure that it goes. And obviously, if that's used from your sadaqah, your general, that's obviously going towards zakat as well. So it helps cover the cost of that. That's one of the things. That's how we are able to do it.
I think that's a very sweet note to.
Sorry, just last
Yeah.
point on that before I forget. I just remembered this. So in the UK, there's something called gift aid. So when you donate, the government will give 25% of that donation from your tax, which you've paid to the charity.
Oh.
In North America, US, and Canada, the taxpayer will get their money back. So when you file your tax, you get the money.
Yeah.
People
Tax
give
deductible
tax.
receipt.
So what people do, they'll claim their tax back. For example, they're gonna get $100 back in tax. What they'll reinvest that into charity, they'll give that back as well, which helps us cover the cost as well. So not just your
I didn't think of
donations, we're
that,
after your tax deductible donations as well.
That's awesome. I mean, let's sort of wrap up with, like, you know, what is for, I guess, our audience, you know, what can they do to be a part of something productive, serving humanity, and we can leave it there.
I mean, and as you answer this, kind of hint on this, and I've kind of gone back and forth with people in the MWF about this. But how can people, because our audience is mainly North America, how can we get involved? Is there any kind of aid missions you run out of North America? Let's say I want to go to Uganda. I've 5-6 guys in front of me here. Ibrahim, Hamad, Talha, Abdul Qadir, Abdullah. All of these guys. Maybe we want to go, inshallah, one day to Gaza to prepare something, or maybe want to go build a well in Egypt or Sham or Morocco. Is that something that you guys do or able? Would you guys sponsor it? Would we get our own sponsorship? Have you ever done something like that? Just to see how
we've
we
done
get
that.
involved?
The first time we actually did it was, I think, about 10 years ago.
Okay.
But it's a project that we weren't actually actively pursuing. It was just the time that it came. Then every time we go on deployments, we take certain people with us wherever we need to go. Then we started something in 2023. It was our travel to Pakistan, travel to Aghosh. It was our first ever deployment.
Ghosh, the orphan.
The orphan care homes. So over there, the concept was that you're a big brother, you're a big sister, which we were talking about. And that was the first of its kind that we did like that, where we spent 5 days with the orphans, where you were traveling with them, you went to safaris with them. There was loads of different activities. So if there is interest, there's definitely that we can do as well. And to end, I would say what you can do. Giving money is one small part of it. That's fine. Donate, give every month as much as you can, all the time as much as you can. That's fine. But the best part of it is to become a volunteer in different aspects, wherever, giving your time. Loads of people in North America are professionals in different ways. Some are doctors, some are accountants, various different engineers, wherever you are, wherever your skill set is, give your skill set, donate your time. That the impact that has is exponentially greater than the impact of only money can have. So I would definitely say come get involved in numerous different ways as well, and we'd love to have you on board as well, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much for your time.
Jazakallah. Thank you so much for having me on.
Jazakallah khair. And inshallah, catch you all soon on our next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.